Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whatever part of the world you're in. It's nice to have you on board today for office hours. Today is our 1701st daily show without missing a beat, and it's time to get started. So, Jason, what do we got today on our question list?
Jack Cannon in Phoenix, Arizona writes in to ask, has anyone tested the Comica VM40? Curious to hear what the sound quality is since it has onboard recording with 32-bit float.
Jesse Kester's going to start us off this morning. Jesse, good morning.
Good morning. Let's take a look at what we're talking about, and then we'll talk about what we're looking at. This is the Comica Audio VM40 wireless shotgun mic. It says new item coming soon, but I was on set a couple of days ago and we were actually using this exact unit. I'm 90% sure it was this exact one, perhaps a previous version, but everything looked identical to what we're looking at here. It was fine. It's fine for a $250 shotgun mic. It's fine. We do not, this was a different team's crew that I was on for this one, but we don't incorporate consumer grade $250 wireless anything into our kit because we end up shooting in urban areas. If you've ever shot in downtown LA, you're like 2 blocks away from the police department, and just forget about it. Just forget about consumer grade wireless if you're anywhere near the Los Angeles Police Department. You make that mistake once, you're very gun shy, and you're going to be hardlining everything with XLRs. And for $250, you'll be getting a better shotgun mic that can be tethered anyway. But for low budget run and gun productions where you need, quick setup and you don't want to be running cables all over someone's house, functional, but not the kind of thing that we'd put in our kit.
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, one of the keys to getting better sound is to get the microphone closer to the subject. I've had some Comica items in the past and wasn't too impressed with what they got, but you could build something very similar. I know that Jack does a lot of stuff out in the field, like far away from the Los Angeles Police Department, so where there's not too much risk of RF. And if the projects are low budget, I mean, that might work fine, might be worth risking doing it. But I would prefer even to get a low budget Deity transmitter. This one also does record. So this is what's called a plug-on transmitter, and it's an XLR plug-on. And then the nice benefit to having that setup is that then you can go ahead and put it inside of a blimp, and now you can be able to properly boom that thing and have it when you're swinging. A lot of times you're getting air gusts, and so that mic there, looking at it, I don't know what the foamy or whatever it has that comes with it, it doesn't even look like it has a foamy, so with no wind protection, you're just going to get pummeled if you're outdoors with that thing. So I would rather go with the traditional setup where I can add on other things and have it fit in the ecosystem that's already out there in the world, which is Rode blimps or Sennheiser blimps or Rycoder or any of the usual suspects.
Yeah, I've had the same experience. Early in my career, you use what you can afford, and often you can get really decent results out of that stuff, but you will eventually run into problems, and you've heard a couple of them. A heavy RF area, like near a public safety thing where there's all sorts of radios and transmitters and antennas actively working around you that can mess things up. Or you find yourself with just listening back in a critical situation. I think the first time I ran across that is the first time that I had to put something that I had shot into a movie theater sound system. And it revealed that my audio, which had sounded fine in my headphones at home at my desk in a quiet room, actually had a lot of stuff hiding behind it that I wasn't hearing. And as I invested in better and better equipment, I got more and more confident that what I was hearing in the field, what I was coming back with, and those tracks that I was spending so much time recording were perfectly suited to the task at hand rather than marginally suited for the task at hand. That's kind of why you tend to go up this hill. I'll start off with what I can afford, and you can learn there. And in some cases, if you're in the right circumstance, a quiet environment outside, no RF traffic, you can get a really decent basic track recorded. But when you get into those circumstances where you're in a scrum of 30 reporters and you still need to get good connectivity between your microphone and the camera or the recorder you're working with, you just stop having tolerance for things that don't work the way they're supposed to. Courtney Gooden, go in, and then Guy will come back.
Yeah, I agree with everyone's opinion here. I think the places where this could be utilized are fairly limited, but Guy brought up an important point. There's a lot of wirelesses out there, the DJIs and the deities that can record in the transmitter itself these days. And as long as you're not live streaming, those things are okay. But the problem with the 2.4 gigahertz wireless mics is that they can drop out, and they're very sensitive to anything blocking the signal. But their saving grace is the fact that they're recording inside the microphone itself, and that won't drop out. The other problem is with the lavaliers is they have the little furry that'll clip on the top, but then it's really obvious because you've got this little cancer thing, hovering on your chest that looks like it's a tribble that's attacking you. But at least with this type of shotgun, you can put it out of the frame, and you can put it in a decent basket windscreen that you'll have a better chance of keeping the wind noise out of it, which can destroy your track. And if you lose that transmission, you won't know what that wind noise sounds like until you get it into post, and then you're going to be really disappointed because all your tracks are destroyed by low frequency wind interruptions because of insufficient wind noise. So it solves one little problem for your YouTubers. It doesn't do anything for you if you're live streaming. I wouldn't live stream with any of the 2.4 gigahertz wireless mics out there because your chances of getting dropouts are pretty high.
For those of you who are playing Office Hours Bingo, a Star Trek reference has just occurred. That is official. It was about the trouble with tribbles, and you can now score that off on your card. Guy Cochran.
Yeah, one of the other things about the higher end wireless is that you can perform an auto scan, so you can go through and you can see what frequencies are available. So this one allows me to actually jump to different frequencies, and if there's a hit on one, I can go over somewhere else, or I can scan and see what's less crowded. The other thing is, man, I can still feel it today. I was doing this C-level exec interview. We had VHF wireless. This was back in the mid-90s. I can't tell you how bad I felt when I heard this coming over my headphones, and I had to tell this C-level guy to stop. And this was after it took weeks to get him booked and everything, and then I had to tell him to stop because we were getting wireless interference, and it was just one of the worst days of my career, So buy once, cry once, because in that case, I would have given anything at that moment to just undo. So Buying cheap wireless really bit me.
I will also tell you that having come back with any kind of remote system where I cannot hear in live real time what the sound quality is, so I appreciate the need for putting a card in a mic and getting a secondary recording that's free of RF and things like that. That's not the same as having a monitor loop back you so you can hear a problem like Guy was just describing. I've had a couple of circumstances like that where if I wasn't monitoring, I would have blown the entire gig because I couldn't hear what was going to the actual recorder. To me, that's pretty mission critical. Jesse, last comment?
Yeah, just a quick thought. If you have it, one of these in your cart and it's up against like a DJI little lavalier wireless thing, I would definitely say that this is the one to go with for two reasons. The first is that the shotgun is going to sound better. I mean, once you're on that consumer band wireless, you're there already, so you might as well sound good. Second is that it's recording on mic, so even if the wireless drops out. But the third is that you're going to be learning better mic technique. So you want to be learning on something like a shotgun, whether, learning how to get the mic outside of the shot and as close to the mouth as possible without interrupting the frame. And I know I'm a portrait of hypocrisy right now advocating for that, but there you are.
No, I understand that. Let's move on to the next question.
Douglas Carmichael would like to know, what does everybody think of the new Dante controller?
I don't think anything about it because I haven't seen it and I didn't know. We talked a little bit pre-show about the fact that there must be some new kind of thing. Now that's a software thing, so I guess they must have jiggered the user interface or something. But if something knows, let's see, Mickey just says functionality is the same, but not much to be excited about, although it's nice that it no longer looks like the back-end developers designed the front end. So there you go. And Mickey would know. I think that takes care of that as far as we can today, Douglas. If we get somebody on, or maybe keep coming back with Dante controller questions as more people are here who have experience with it, will help you out. better than we're able to today. Let's go to the next question.
Paul Walhoose in Austin, Texas writes in, a Roland Bridgecast One is only $179 and it's really good. It's a voice changer, it's a mixer, flexible I/O, and there's more. Excited? And then he includes the YouTube link.
I'm sighing a little bit because my experience with voice changers things like that has been less than ideal. Courtney, dive in.
What are you talking about? Voice changers, they can, save your bacon every now and then if you need to do a munchkin.
Yeah, no. Rode has discovered the podcast. It's become a huge market. 5 years ago, everyone said podcast. Why would we make something specific for a podcast? We make great mixers and stuff for, music mixers, et cetera. But they found this to be a very lucrative market. Everybody now has a podcast and everybody wants a good, clean interface to it. So this is one of those things, one of those many things that Rode makes, about 4 or 5 podcaster interfaces. I'm talking to you on one now, now I can't, Rodecaster Pro.
Rodecaster Pro?
And they make a smaller version, and the smaller version, this is probably the smallest version of that now that they've made. So it's interesting. I'm not sure, it's $179. That's pretty reasonably priced, and they do have pretty good preamps. They do have preamps. If they're using the same preamps in this that they're using in their higher-end products, then it should give you about 72 dB of gain, which is enough for the dynamic microphones from Shure that are very popular. So without having too much self-noise in them. So they're pretty good preamps. I haven't given it a try, but I'm talking to you on one now that is not, that's the big brother of the one. No.
Yeah, I think for entertainment value, I think there's a lot of fun you can have with them, and you should. I will say that in the audiobook world, since I'm playing in that a little bit these days, there have been a couple of times when I've been tempted when I've had a scene that has 3 female characters in it to maybe try a little pitch shifting, even very modest, to try to separate one from another. Every time I've done that, the result has sounded just fake enough to where I've gone, nope, I got to figure out another thing to use, whether it's pacing or breathiness or something to separate character A from character B from character C. So that's kind of why I'm a little bit really a voice changer, but that's from the kind of use I have. That doesn't mean you'll run into the same thing. My 2 cents. Moving on to the next question.
Danny Grizzle in Longview, Texas asks, how do you dispose of obsolete equipment?
Oh, excellent question. Courtney.
I leave it out on the front lawn for about 10 minutes, and it's gone. It's amazing. If it has any kind of metal in it, boy, the scrappers.
It'll be gone. I'm seeing things get tougher and tougher to dispose of things,
especially if they have lead in them. That has become. They're now considered hazardous substances. You can't throw them away. You can't take them. Here's a tip: you can take them to Best Buy. They will accept e-waste, they call it. So things that and recycle it for you without charge, I believe. So I've done that a couple of times, but I have like a warehouse full of this stuff practically, and that is old, obsolete cables. They're probably worth something for scrap value, but I'll have to find a metal recycler to take cables that have molded ends on them. They have to cut the ends off and strip the wire out to recover the metal in them. And 50-foot long VGA cables. When are you going to use those these days? So that's kind of hard to get rid of. The other thing is, if it's anything that was popular at one time but is no longer made, put it on eBay and mark it as very rare vintage, and then whatever it is. And you'll find some collector somewhere that collects old, test equipment from the 1930s. You can find some people, if it's rare enough and if it's vintage enough, people want to recover. I found people that want to recover and restore, VIC-20s and old 8-bit computers, that make a living out of restoring those and returning them to their one-time glory, even though they're completely useless.
Jason Bache.
Yeah, just add made with real vintage mercury, and they'll sell like hotcakes. No, just a public service announcement: never, ever, ever give away for recycling or anything else one of your hard drives. Remove your hard drives. Destroy your hard drives. It's easy, and it is just the only responsible way. Just never, ever, ever let something go. Yeah,
Jesse Kester.
It's not just easy, it's fun. You get like a hammer and you go to town on the thing.
It's a lot of fun. It's the best my drill press ever gets.
The one thing I will say is that occasionally you might live in the right neighborhood or the right part. I am supremely lucky that there is actually a recycling center not terribly far from me, and they will do things like allow you to take in 50 hard drives, and you can watch while they put them through the industrial grinder. And so you will know that those old units are gone for good. So check with your local thing. I just searched under My City Electronic Recycling. The Boy Scouts and some other groups do that kind of traditionally, but that is not a safety recycling. That's just if you have something like an old VCR and you want to maybe give it to them to play with or something like that. So do some searches on the internet. I was really pleased to see that in this community in California, they have a pretty robust e-waste recycling program, and it doesn't cost anything, which was even better for me. I'm sure they're taking the gold and cadmium or whatever else there is in there and getting just enough money to make it not a profit-losing proposition for whichever municipal group does it. So good luck with that, Danny. I know it's tough. Next question.
John Foltz in Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania, writes, in the magnetic mask in Final Cut 11 is really interesting. I found it easy to use and pretty accurate. This could solve a lot of post-production problems. What's been your mileage?
Jesse Kester, start us off.
I haven't used this specific one yet, but it's the pretty part of the pretty accurate that gets me. All the tools I've seen for automated image extraction are good enough for what I consider to be disposable content, like stuff that you're going to look at as you're scrolling through a feed, but not really professional content. Like we'd never hand off an auto extraction to one of our well-paying clients because it's just not at the standard necessary to continue receiving payment. But for stuff that you just flip through and like, oh, cool, his sunglasses float, and then he appears behind his sunglasses. This is functional, as are most of these automated tools. I'm optimistic that they'll get better as they incorporate more and more AI into these tools. But for the time being, I haven't seen anything that even comes remotely close to professional level use.
I haven't been able to play with it yet because I've got one last project I got to get through before I do my latest update from OS and things like that. But I will say that I monitor the Mac community for Final Cut and the rest of those things, and people are talking with pretty glowing terms about how well the AI implementation inside Magic Masking is working for them. Now, caveat, I don't know these people. I don't know their sophistication level with keying. They may be incredibly sophisticated. They may not be. But generally, the overall word on the street so far has been quite positive. And some people who have done this work in other software say this is a big step up from what they've seen in terms of automated rotoscoping in other tools. All that said, this is also, particularly in the 11 version of Final Cut, this is a new core bed that's very AI saturated with what Apple is doing in terms of their machine learning algorithms and stuff like that. So I do expect it to accelerate their precision with this stuff, and it seems like the onboard AI processing in the new machines, the people who've been talking about this are talking about using it on the brand new machines with a brand new operating system that has more capacity for AI processing than anything else and does it on the chips. So I would say at this point I'm hopeful that it may turn out to be much more useful than I had thought, and we may see a lot more things that are rotoscoped out of generic scenes in the future. Don't have a final answer on that. I haven't used it myself, but that's what I'm hearing from the other groups. So fingers crossed for me, at least. Next question.
Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York, writes in, I'm streaming a high school vocal concert in a few weeks, and it looks like the venue has no Ethernet ports I can use I can access for this. Successful streams have happened here before, but what advice does the panel have for Wi-Fi streaming? Yeah, I know.
Courtney Gooden, help out if you can.
Don't do it. If it's your computer or their computer doesn't have Ethernet port on it, carry one of these around in your bag, which is a USB with a little adapter. It can go USB-A, USB-C to additional USB 3 ports and a gigabit Ethernet port on it. That way, if all their USB ports are taken up, you can just plug this in and intercept their USB and plug their stuff back into the USB and get you an Ethernet port out of it. But if you are doing the streaming and they don't have a Ethernet port on their router that is supplying Wi-Fi, a travel router, there are a lot of these pocket-based travel routers would be good to set up your own Wi-Fi link. If you can plug this in, and this has 3 Ethernet ports on it, so you could intercept the one Ethernet port that they are using for their WAN, and then send this off back to it, sneaky, and give you your own wireless Ethernet access point. If you can set up an additional access point somewhere, that's good to keep the traffic off of, and don't share the password protect it, and don't share it with anyone. That'll keep a lot of traffic off it. It won't keep it from being pinged by everyone's phone in the venue. But that's one good thing. I would say use the higher frequencies, but that has less travel. It penetrates and is, if you're far away from the Wi-Fi router, try and use 2.4 gigahertz, although that's going to be very crowded. If you have, you can take Wireshark, or if you have a little Wi-Fi snooper on your phone, you can download. There's a number of them on all platforms that will sniff the Wi-Fi in your area and show you the traffic that's on each of the Wi-Fi channels that are out there. Pick a channel that is less trafficked. And, if you have to use Wi-Fi, that's one of the best ways to eliminate problems, is to find an empty channel, make sure you're the only one on it, set up a separate SSID and a separate Wi-Fi access point, and pray for no interference.
Jesse Kester.
So yeah, everything +1 on that. If they have the signs up around the room saying Wi-Fi and password, just get them all down before the crowd shows up, so that people aren't jumping on the Wi-Fi as well. If you listen to office hours a lot, you'll get the impression that touching Wi-Fi ever in any production is the death of your entire company. There are reasons we're also gun shy when it comes to Wi-Fi. They're legitimate reasons, and it's why we avoid it on any chance we get. But it's not the end of the possibility of a successful stream. And when we're stuck on Wi-Fi, which we have been for productions, what you do is a lot of laying groundwork with the client, and you let them know, here's what you can expect. We will do everything we can on our side to make sure that the stream goes out correctly. But the absolute weakest link in our pipeline will be that we're on Wi-Fi and not on Ethernet. And once we hand off to your Wi-Fi network, we can't really be responsible for what happens after that. And you spend time mitigating expectations, and that will go a long way, especially when you're doing something like high school, something, a little, I don't want to say lower budget, but of more modest means and more modest expectations. That'll go a long way. And what you'll find is typically the client is just really glad that somebody is there taking the really complicated stuff of getting signal into the switcher and getting signal out to the stream. Like that's what they want to avoid, and they're ready to take the hit on whatever happens with Wi-Fi once you've taken care of what they really don't want to deal with and have no budget to fix. So don't be surprised if with a little bit of mitigation you are very, very appreciated, even if the stream ends up being a little bumpy.
And in the Mukana chat, Mickey Mekachor said, if the venue refuses to provide you access, then warn your clients. And he got 2 thumbs up on that. And overall, that's been exactly what people are saying. Just make sure everybody knows that you're stuck on their system, and there's only so much you can do about it. Let's move on to the next question.
Paul Walhoose in Austin, Texas writes in, what's a good source for multicolored HDMI and USB-C cables?
Oh, Jesse Kester, start us off.
I'm going with the tried and true favorite of Condor Blue. I don't know that this will give you the variety of colors that you need, but these are very reliable cables and very reliable discount offers. But this will get you started with at least 3 colors. I think they've got a fourth. So they got the blue, black, red, and then the Gerald Undone purple. And that should get you started. I don't know if that's the amount of travel you need or the price point that you need, but that's where I would start looking for multicolored HDMI cables.
Condor Blue's great. Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, I like the mono price. They're not great, but they're molded and they're red in different colors. You can get them. They also have, there's this one ultra slim. The problem with a lot of these ultra slim that come in colors is they don't last very long. You bend them 3 or 4 times and you'll find that they don't work much anymore. So be careful about the ultra slim HDMI connectors, and you can get the same things for USB-C connectors in multicolor. That's Kramer Electronics manufactures those that I just mentioned, the ultra slim.
Jason Beisch.
Let me start by saying I love monoprice, and you shouldn't think twice about what I'm about to say after this and think that I don't like them, because I really, really do. Overbuy by about 10% because a lot of them are just going to fail.
Oh, there you go. I think we've all been there one way or another. I will also indicate that MarkerTech, the longtime mail-order supply company, has a custom cable shop. So you may want, if you need a lot of them in different lengths and you want to specify, I need 2.3 meters of XLR cable in yellow. They can certainly do that and put together your order there. So there are custom shops like MarkerTech and others that are similar that will allow you to specify the cables you need, how you want them terminated, what kinds of terminations on them. Do you want straight, right angle, or whatever, and they will build them for you. Courtney, your final thoughts?
Yeah, that's great for XLR cables, but you will not find anyone that custom makes HDMI cables, USB-C cables. Simply because they have to be machine assembled and molded usually. You can't solder connectors on the end of either of those very easily unless you have microscopes and a very serious ability, a very steady hand that you don't drink coffee for at least 3 weeks.
Okay, there you go. Well, that makes sense, too. I keep reminding myself of those X-ray pictures of the end of those Apple Thunderbolt cables and realizing how much circuitry is in some of those connectors at the end, and you're right. There's no way in the world that's a home wiring job at all. Next question.
And the favorite pre-show question of the day comes in from Travis Morrison in Perth, Western Australia. I just want to say I love this community. I feel like I found my people. Question, with the advancements in M-series chips, is there less need for dedicated bonded encoders, which can be expensive, if something like a Pepwave is handling the bandwidth bonding?
Before the show, the whole crew here had a fun time kind of parsing through this and trying to figure out exactly how to respond to this. Guy Cochran's going to take his shot at it. Guy, dive in.
Sure. Welcome to the community. You're among great people here. As you watch some of the older episodes, you'll see people like Courtney have not only a wealth of knowledge, but man, a history that's just fantastic. To answer the question though, Speedify is something that is a Mac app, and I don't see it being any greater than what some of the bigger boys like Pepwave do, because you can do things like, add antennas, add eSIMs, and then the actual bonding where the 2 signals or 3 signals or 4 or 5 signals come back in. There's analyzation that goes on that says, hey, which one of these has not just the fastest download or upload speed, but which one has the lowest ping. So there's WAN smoothing and all these things that you can get with a proper Pepwave system. So there's more behind the scenes than meets the eye than just getting Speedify. I've used Speedify. It's worked when it's worked, but when it doesn't work, it's brutal. So if you're going to use it, test.
Yeah. It was perfect until it was terrible. A lot of us have been in that circumstance before. Usually it was perfect before the show, and as soon as we went live, it went to heck in a handbasket. Next question.
Brian Craig in Toronto asks, with the QR code regarding teleprompting at a live event, do you know of any teleprompt system that would allow you to let the talent know when to start speaking? For example, maybe having a color border and someone can flash it to cue them.
I know this is behind the scenes stuff. I was about to click on Courtney to answer this when Jesse's name popped in. So Jesse is technically first in the order. So Jesse, do it, and then we'll get to
I would not mind if Courtney went first on this one.
I think that's perfect. I didn't want to mess up the back end if they were working on a Supersource that had the names in order. But since that's not in here, let's go to our teleprompting guru, Courtney Gooden.
Back in the early days, in the Pleistocene era of teleprompting, there were used to be a few prompter software that had a message line, and this was designed for newsroom type prompting mainly, rather than event type prompting, where they would do a cue like break coming up or something like that to give to the announcer that doesn't scroll; it's static on the screen, and then the scrolling text is below that. So you could use that, but most prompter operators can't really take their hands off the mouse or the controller long enough if they're in the middle of scrolling somebody else to type in a cue. If they're just waiting, then they could do it. Another thing you can do is a lot of teleprompting systems offer the ability to inverse the polarity of the image, white on black and black on white. You could tell the talent, when you see it flash white on black, go. The other thing is a lot of teleprompting systems have the ability to blank the screen, just make it black. And if it's black, they're not likely to start. And so you come out of black into their text when it's time for them to speak. This is what's done on award shows. They black out the teleprompter until the very last second. And that's why you see a lot of stars come up and be looking out there ready to start their speech, and everyone's applauding, and they're waiting for the teleprompter to go from black to their text, and then it pops up. So you got to be careful about that, because some monitors, if you're using conventional monitors, TVs for monitors, sometimes they will shut off if they have a black signal up for too long, because they go into power save mode and shut off the power, and then you're in real trouble. So that happened to me once. So don't do that. Be careful and test that by you leaving the teleprompter in black for a long period, and make sure that if you're using a large screen TV or something as your display device, that it doesn't switch off to save power when it sees no visible signal on its image.
And if you were watching Courtney through all that, you weren't looking at that little golden statue over his shoulder, which comes from the invention of teleprompting stuff. So pay attention. We are very, very lucky to have that voice here on this topic. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael writes in, for those with MacBook Pros that have nano-texture displays, do you carry spare cleaning cloths with you?
Good question. Everybody's talking about that. They've been doing different textures on their screens, and they put a lot, from what I've read, they put a lot of research and effort into those the glare-resistant, quote, nano-texture displays. So I'm going to suspect that as much went into this as what went into the other ones that I've seen, the cinema displays and things like that, that were specifically designed for use in areas where reflections on a critical viewing circumstance can be problematic. So I guess my guess is that they're building it not just to be effective, but I don't think it would be that delicate. I may be wrong, but I'm not sure that if you are already careful with your cleaning of displays and you know the things not to use, like don't soak a rag in ammonia or use something that's rough on these coated displays. I'm not saying that the MacBook Pros that are coming out with nano-texture are coated. I'm just saying I suspect them to be reasonably robust and not delicate unless you hear different. Courtney from Apple. Courtney, dive in.
Yeah, when it has the word nano in it, be careful, because whatever it is very small. So if it's a textured glass that's created by sandblasting or some other type of applying a caustic to it or something during its manufacturing process, and it has very fine little gritty things on the surface of it, those little gritty things can be filed down fairly easily. So since if it was easy to create that nanotexture, it's easy to destroy that nanotexture. So what I suggest is to get a soft, lint-free cleaning cloth, and if they provide you with one, and travel with it between the keyboard and the glass. So lay it over your keyboard, then close the top, because I've had a lot of laptops that are traveling around in bags and being jostled and pressed and sat on and leaned on and thrown into luggage, which has another piece of luggage slam up against it like that during travel, and then it vibrates like this as it goes over the roads for 300 miles. And it can it can carve little indents into Gorilla Glass. I've seen that happen. So this nano-texture is probably pretty sensitive to vibration and abrasion. So you want to make sure that nothing is trapped between the keyboard and the glass when you close your laptop. And putting that cloth in there helps you prevent that from happening. And if anything gets in there, or if the keys get pressed up, or something gets under a key in there that causes it to stick up a little higher, it's not rubbing on the screen as you travel. So be careful.
I just actually searched on a white paper Apple nano-texture display, and look what popped up. How to clean your nano-texture Apple display. So this would probably have, this is right from support.apple.com, so that will probably give you some more information on whether or not you need to be extra careful doing that. Let's go to the next question.
Chester Sweeney in Las Vegas, Nevada writes in, about Davinci Resolve, best way to update. App Store?
Jesse Kester, start us off.
We buy and update directly from Blackmagic. So if you do it that way, when you open Resolve and there's a new version, it says, do you want to update? And then you download the new version, uninstall the old, install the new, and all your old libraries carry over just fine. It's worked wonderfully for us for years now.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, in fact, I just updated my copy of Davinci Resolve. I think it's still running. Let's see. It's still going. Oh, look, there it is. To 19.1. And there is a choice on there from one of the menus. I can't get to my mouse right now for that particular machine, but there is a check for updates. It will check for updates if it's been running and hasn't started recently, like that one has been running for several weeks, to test it on that particular hardware. Do check for updates. It'll find the update and do the install. You have to close then as it downloads and does the install. It does a very neatly install. But if you go from 19 to 19.1, it'll still, when it boots up, it'll still show the splash screen that says Resolve 19. Don't be alarmed. When you go and check the version after it's completely booted, it will show that it's been updated to 19.1.
As soon as Courtney threw up that video, my brain almost went into lock because I saw that sodium vapor lit scene. Went, oh no! Don't tell me that's in front of my camera.
Just have the color correction.
There's nothing in the world works to fix that. There's this gigantic hole in the spectrum, and getting rid of that golden, that's like, I can do it in black and white. That's about my only choice. Anyway, that's completely off the subject, but you just triggered me there from having been behind a camera for too long. Let's go to the next question.
Our own Guy Cochran from Seattle, Washington, and here in the panel, in a Supersource, how do you quickly swap the box content in a TUA?
Guy, walk us through that. What are you using?
Well, this was a question that popped up on these forums that we have on Facebook. Chuck Wojak and I manage a group of 50,000 people on this, and this question got me down the rabbit hole because I was trying to solve this guy's problem, and I was hoping somebody else on here would chime in. I'll go ahead and answer some of the things that I found. One of them was, of course, MixEffect, which Jason had said pre-show that's how he would do it. So I fired up MixEffect because that's also what I thought. Here's box 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you have the option down here. So first I clicked on this Supersource thing, and then there's box 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you can swap. So like over here, I've got Luis on the left, and I want to swap him with whoever's talking. So right now, this lady, Elena's talking. So if I want box 1 to be her, I would hit 2, and now she's popped in there. But that's some mouse clicking there that I don't really want to do. And so I was trying to figure out how can you do it with a Stream Deck, and I couldn't find a way. And then I remembered that our friend Joe DeMax had put up a tutorial, which was this thing, and I happen to have one of these. It's called an Akai APC Mini, and it's basically just a MIDI device. So if you look at the top left, he's got SS box 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then there's 8 selections below. So for box 1, if I wanted input 2, I would just hit this and then this. And this is only like $100 device. This isn't expensive. And then his software, he had it on sale. Maybe he'll do a Black Friday sale, but it was like $39. So so to solve this with hardware for $100. And then the other cool thing is in my ATEM, I didn't realize you get physical audio faders for like $100. Like, this is crazy.
Wow.
So as I programmed this thing last night, I was like, these faders really work, and they absolutely work. So central control with an Akai is amazing. Like, if you have an ATEM, it's a must. Central control with this Akai it's crazy. Watch the video. I'll put a link in chat as to how you build this thing, and he's got a preset there that you could just download if you don't want to build it, but it's pretty fascinating, really cool,
and
really fast. We do these shows where it's just getting called super fast. Box 2, and you're just like, I can't mouse click that fast. I got it. Because look at how you would do it in the ATEM software control. So if you had to build this in the ATEM software control, look at how let's see, that's input 3. So input 3, now here we have box 1, and if we want person 2, so it's not only a click, it's a click and pull down to choose your source here in the box control. So, I mean, in the way that you do it with the Blackmagic software, it's painful. Like, and so I was hoping somebody down here would say like, "Oh, guy, just buy the $4,000 panel and you're golden." But I don't know how to do it with the big panel because I don't own one. But if I could do it with an Akai and central control for under $200, done. So I'm gonna write this guy back and let him know that I think the solution to his problem.
So who knows? Maybe there's a software engineer working for Blackmagic or Apple or someplace who will go, can't I just write a piece of code to flop 1 and 2 and put a little button there with a
Well, it's more than that because it happens so fast. Like when you're in a show, somebody's like, okay, we want the PowerPoint in the box 4, and we want person speaking Elena in 2, and you just gotta hit it.
Right.
You can't be like dragging boxes down, and ideally, you take it to preview first and then hit it. But
live production for the air is a no joke thing. You want every advantage you can get. Let's go to the next.
By the way, one more quick thing on
Go
that. You'll notice that here in the top left, I'm using my Zowie box as a multi-viewer for my ATEM, which is kind of cool. So it's basically just HDMI to NDI, so anywhere in the network I can pick that up. The other cool thing is I'm using Zoom ISO for these sources. So these 8 bots are available 24 hours a day. This is just a Blackmagic quad card. So the outputs are going out 24 hours a day. You can grab these, Annika, Elena, Jamal, John. They're all working 24 hours a day so that you have a source that you can grab onto, and that's available. I'll put a link in the chat. It's on the Office Hours website.
Good. I was going to ask you to give everybody a link in case you want to play with that. This is an extraordinary service that Guy is providing for everybody for free. Basically, just saying if you want to learn to play with these kind of things, here's a set of sources that you can instantly dial up and get into. So
it's actually Oliver. Oliver is the one who's footing the bill. Yeah, so he's got the hardware, and I've just got the 10 gig connection. That's all. Just a little 10 gig connection.
But regardless, the Office Hours family provides a lot of extra value. That's why we're all here and we show up every day. So thank you, Guy. Let's go to the next question.
Funsak Dorje in Dharamsala, India. Oh, no, wait. Nope, never mind.
Yeah, the one above it.
Flipped. Here it is. Paul Walhus in Austin, Texas writes in, how do you use OpusClip, and would you please do a screen share demo?
I cannot, and I don't think anybody else here has raised their hand to be able to do that. I don't think anybody on this particular panel, on this particular day, knows that much about OpusClip, and certainly doesn't have a demo right here. So, Paul, this one's not going to work for you today, but a different day might be a different thing. I do know that tomorrow on Wednesday on Audio Day, we usually have a bigger panel because there are a lot of people who are interested in that. So maybe try doing that tomorrow or maybe on Friday. Friday also is good. For a little bit of time here, while the back-end crew is working very diligently on kind of replumbing everything, we're not doing second hours this week, and we have a limited number of people who are going to be here because there's just a lot of stuff going on in the back end as we try to improve for the future. So, our apologies. We always seek to do the best job we can of answering every single question that comes in. Some days like this, there's just nobody here who has that bit of specific knowledge. So our apologies. Let's go to the next question.
Punsok Dorje in Dharamsala, India writes in, "Hi panelist, asking for a friend. How to repair corrupted video files with extension .mdt from Panasonic HCX2 camcorder? Thanks."
Courtney, you want to start us off? Any ideas?
Well, it depends. It depends on what platform you're on that you're trying to play these files back on. If you're on a Windows PC, there is a Lumix repair tool that's available for Windows 10 or later that you can get. Oops, sorry, that's not it. Called Lumix Repair Tool, available from the Panasonic support site, that will repair certain types of files that are encoded as MOV or MP4 that have the extension MDT on them, recorded on those Panasonic recorders. So you could try that. If you're on a Mac platform, you might try just renaming it. Change the file name extension to MOV or MP4 and play it back in the media player, the QuickTime player, or VS. What is that? VT. What is the other one? The open source
VLC.
Video Land. Yeah, okay. Try playing it back in VLC, changing the extension to MOV or change it to MP4 and see if it can play it back. If not, you might have to repair it if there's physical damage to the file itself. If it's just whatever your player doesn't know what to do with that type file extension, changing the extension to the codec that was used to encode it might be able to enable it to play.
Jesse Kester.
I have got no words of comfort for you. This is a dark path you're going down trying to recover footage from a camcorder. So an early mistake that a lot of people make when they're working with camcorder footage is they put the card into their computer to back up the data. They go through all the folder trees, find the video files, and drag and drop them onto the hard drive that they're going to use for editing. This is I don't want to be too hyperbolic, so I'll just say this is bad. What you want to do is when you get that card, you put it in and you do a one-to-one disk image of that card for your first backup, and then you can start going through and pulling items out. Like once you have a one-to-one that is separate from everything else, because the first thing that I would try to do in this situation is get that playing back on the actual camera. So if it's not playing back on the computer, if you have that one-to-one, you can rebuild the card that you shot to, put it in the camera, and try to push play. If this works, even if it's not for the full file, you might be able to do some playback and run HDMI off of the camera and record it into another device to get as much of that footage back as you can. This is the reason that once you do this long enough, you really avoid interframe codecs like H.264 when you're doing image acquisition, and that's because if there's like one bit of corruption on one frame on an interframe codec like H.264 or whatever your camcorder is shooting on, this creates a domino effect where that one bad frame can knock out lots of frames in both directions, because frames in all directions are referring to other frames for image data, and you can easily corrupt a file and make it completely impossible to play back. And why a lot of people pretty early move over to something that's intraframe, and that is where every frame is a discrete file that's being saved independently of all the others, because if there is an error, it'll affect that one frame, and you don't have this kind of like domino ripple effect of the rest of your footage getting destroyed and corrupted by one bad frame. So that's what I'd try first, and I'd try everything else that Courtney said as well, but I would not try any of them with even the faintest glimmer of hope in my heart that this is recoverable. If you get it, consider it winning the lottery. If you get any of the footage back, just consider it the biggest W you've had so far.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I'm going to kind of agree with what everybody said. MDT files are kind of an in-progress thing, and it sounds to me like the end of file stopped before it closed off the file and made it a thing that the camera can read. That's a Microsoft Access add-in data file format used in Panasonic digital cameras, according to my quick search on Google. I've had the same thing happen to me in other things, like some of my GoPros, where for some reason when I was copying the file, I was an idiot and didn't let the whole thing go all the way through the readout of the file till it got to the end and it became a readable format. So it's truncated somehow. They did say that there's a couple of ways to recover them, but everybody who's talking about it on any of the sources I looked at really quickly said that it's not a high percentage recovery thing. So we wish you well, Funjak, but this might be tough. But do what I did. Just do a Google search on MDT video file, and you will find some tools that purport to maybe help a little bit. But as I said, most everybody's saying, don't hold out a ton of hope for this because the file doesn't really exist until it's closed off in most computer systems. Let's go to the next question.
Douglas Carmichael writes in, has anyone had experience with deploying private LTE or 5G networks at an event or on a campus?
And Jason, you raised your own hand for that. So have you?
Stanford is so bad that I'm about to go there for a week, and I'm going to bring a microcell site because the cellular coverage is horrible for Verizon.
Really? Palo Alto is that bad for their network?
It's not Palo Alto. It is campus. It's just campus because they just don't have enough cell towers because the campus is so big.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense. Wow. You would think that such a august tech installation.
You'd think, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Would have built in some kind of local area network that's rock solid. Well, not like they don't have an engineering department there, really. Let's get to the next question. Sorry about that, Douglas.
Kenny Hampton in Greenville, Illinois writes in, USB-A-C cables can only insert into device in one direction. How do cables like USB-C cables function with multi-pins all working when they insert in either direction? This remains a mystery to me how this works.
Floppable connections. There you go. Yeah, for a long time, those USB-A connectors with the little white plastic thing on one side, it was the bane of all of us, but it made sure that all the pins had only one array. I think today, well, Courtney, let's get some engineering intelligence on this. Courtney, dive into the difference.
Well, if you have your pocket microscope with you, take it out and look into that connector, and you'll find that there's a center flat piece that makes the connection, and it's got connectors on the top, and it's got connectors on the bottom. And the bottom connectors are a mirror image of the ones on the top. So since it's in the center, it's directly centered, and the outside of the connector can be plugged in either way. It's uniformly shaped on the it's not keyed in any way. It can be flipped over, and so what happens is internally, and the wires are made somewhat differently. Sometimes there's actually an individual wire going between each side of the connector. But since those signals are duplicated on the bottom side, sometimes there are connectors that connect them internally from one end to the other, the top right side to the bottom underside, left side. So that if it's done in the connector, then there's less wires inside the cable itself. But a lot of times there are actual wires for both directions. This is why you'll find a connector sometimes that, hey, it works this way, and it's supposed to work this way, but it doesn't. Something doesn't get through, the data doesn't get through, or the power doesn't get through, because one of those wires is broken inside for each side of the connector. So it depends. You will find, if you find that your USB-C cable doesn't work one way, flip it over and try the other side. It may be just a broken wire on one side of the connector, but it works fine on the other side of the connector. Flip both sides too, and see if you can get data out of it or power out of it, if that's what you're looking for.
Hopefully that helped you, Kenny. Let's move on to our next question.
Douglas Carmichael writes in, Guy, I see you have an M4 Mac Mini. How do you like it? And would you recommend upgrading from an M2 Pro Mac Mini to an M4 Pro for audio work with heavy use of virtual instruments?
All right, Guy's going to take us off. So we have two M4, M2 Pro. Anyway, go for it, Guy.
I'm absolutely fascinated by this machine for the money. I mean, it's crazy. So I'm just running it through tests right now. I put Zoom ISO on it with a Sonnet enclosure, so that gives me the quad card, and it's barely even sneezing at eight signals of SDI coming in. It's crazy. If I cut to it, you can actually see in the activity monitor. If I pull up the actual usage here, it's just barely even creeping along. And this is with all these apps running. I mean, I've got Zoom ISO, NDI video monitor, ATEM software, MixEffect, a couple other things going on, splash top. So I'm actually splash topped into this machine, so it's running headless over down the hall. And this is actually a PC that I'm running my M4 on. But to answer the question, I mean, I'd say get a secondary machine just to sandbox and play with these things on, keep your existing machine and just beat up on it. I mean, it's just a joy. I mean, depending on what you do. I mean, when I started loading up all these apps and just pushing it, I was like, oh my gosh, for the money, I'm going to be buying more of these. The one thing I did notice is that 256 gigs of hard drive space, if you're going to put all your personal stuff on there, it's not enough. It immediately, I had to disconnect my iCloud from it because it ran out of space. So once I did that, then it started running fine again. But if you are going to put your personal stuff on there, then I would definitely go to the 512 or the 1 terabyte version instead. But besides that, I mean, the power bang for buck is just enormous. It's a giant leap. And there's plenty of videos. There is a trick that I saw about putting the home folder, I think it's an alias, to the home folder on an external, which would allow you to free up things. So I still got to try that trick to see if I can move some of my photos, because I have 71,000 photos in my photo library, so there's just a little bit there that's taken up some space. So I can't keep all my photos on that machine, unfortunately.
So did you get the base configuration?
Base, yep.
Really? So you spent like $600, something like that?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's amazing that you're getting that kind of response out of that. And our other M4 Mac Mini owner on the panel, Jason Bache, thoughts?
Yeah, I spent $2,000 on it, and I wish I could say I regret it. Douglas, buddy, you have asked this question so many times. You clearly just want this, and no matter how many times people tell you, no audio task can best your M2 Mac Mini. Just get it. You want it. Get it.
And we have another moment in office hours gear acquisition syndrome boosting here, because we all love it when people like Guy and Jason come in with the brand newest toys and can tell us realistically, did this make a difference? And it sounds like, in terms of personal joy, if you're a dedicated nerd or geek like most of us are, then the answer is yes. The joy coefficient is high on this beast. Let's go to the next question.
Ronnie Hofsoy in Tromsø, Norway writes in, anyone try the new Sony PXW-Z200? Thinking of getting a few, mostly for event production.
Oh, I haven't even looked at it. Courtney, have you?
Well, I was just taking a look at it now. It's about a $4,000 camcorder. It's from Sony. It's a fixed lens. I mean, not a fixed lens, but it's a captive lens, not interchangeable lens. It's a 20-to-1 zoom. It's a 4K. It's got a lot of AI features in it, a lot of whiz-bang tools that have auto image centering and things like that that will follow. It'll detect faces and follow them around if you're not transmitting the full 1-inch CMOS 4K sensor out. So it'll do image stabilization. It'll use its image stabilization electronic area to center the person in the lens, and does AI autofocus. And I was trying to find out, and I didn't get to that point yet, to find out if you're going to use it for live streaming, if it has SDI connection on it. I think maybe looking at the back, it might, but I can't quite tell. I'll have to look at the specs closer, but you want something that has SDI output on it if you're going to be using it for event production. Especially for live streaming, so you need to get a live signal out of it at 4K. So it's going to have some 12 gigabit SDI connection on it, or HDMI that you could convert to put it further away.
Cool. We've got two more. Let's see if we can get through them and finish up with a clean slate. Next question.
Bedward in New Glarus, Wisconsin writes in, what internet speeds are recommended to stream to both Facebook and YouTube from one venue using two different devices?
I'm having trouble with that, and I'm not the best source of internet streaming ideas. Courtney, do you have some further thoughts?
Well, 10 megabits per stream usually is for your upstream. It depends on whether you're streaming 1080p or higher. If you can get gigabit symmetrical, if you can get a symmetrical fiber connection, that would be your best bet, which was what I'm using, and it's fairly cheap these days. If the venue can get a AT&T fiber connection, it'll give you 980 up. something like that, megabits. So that should be able to handle it all right. But generally 10 to 20 megabits up will handle something like that for 2 streams. Should be okay, because usually a stream can be between 5 and 10 megabits up.
Jason, real quick.
Take your expected bit rate for each service, add them together, double that, and that'll be good.
There you go. Let's do our last question.
Douglas Carmichael writes in, Guy, it's interesting when you talk about using the APC controller for an ATEM. I've used Isadora to control an ATEM for Belfast Method shows via atemOSC. Could you easily use Isadora and MixEffect to link the APC to the ATEM?
I hate to put Guy on the spot because he didn't raise his hand on this. Did this come through clearly to you?
Yeah. I'm not as familiar with Isadora, whereas Central Control, he actually has videos that are showing you step by step. And one of the cool things about it is when you push a button on the MIDI device, it actually lights up and it says, okay, that one is matrix 1,1. And now you just click the ATEM module and you just say, okay, I want that to be DSK auto. And you just hit assign and it assigns it. So it's worth the $70, I think, is what Joe Max is charging to have this kind of functionality because he built it all, and then there's presets. So to me, it's a no-brainer purchase, and especially if it goes on Black Friday sale again, because I picked up a couple licenses when he came on the show and said, hey, they're $30. I was like, I'll take 2 of those because I already have a pro version, and now I'm wishing I would have bought like 10 more licenses at that price. And so if they go on Black Friday sale, I'm going to get more because it's amazing because it's not just these devices. Go on his website. There's hundreds of devices that the stuff's already written in there, so you don't have to handwrite it. That's the glory of it all.
So everyone should have their low voltage shock wristbands on now, and as you reach for your wallet, just in preparation for Black Friday, it'll give you a small shock and try to slow down your spending this next Friday on all the toys that we want. Thank you all for paying attention to the show today and watching. We'll be back tomorrow to do the same thing and every day this week as we head towards it. Our Philok Traversal today, we traveled 49,000 miles. That's 79,000 kilometers or 391 million bananas for scale. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
No, but really, Douglas, buddy, just get it. I mean, yeah, come on.
Did you see the speeds on the Thunderbolt 5 OWC Thunderbolt 5, 5,000 megabytes a second?
I know.
And it doesn't even get hot. People are saying it's not even hot. It's like warm. I was like, what? That's
Can we talk to Larry at OWC or something and get a bulk purchase on cables?
I'm going to talk to him on Thursday. Maybe I'll just be like, yeah, Larry, can we harness our buying power?
And we'll order 500 cables if we can get them
How
cheap.
much cheaper do Thunderbolt cables get by the 100?
Yeah. Anyway, it's pretty exciting that these new tools are available at these kind of price points. Can you imagine? I mean, I was thinking back to my huge purchase 25 years ago for a Mac 2 FX computer to do all of our advertising work, and it was $17,000. And any one of these minis has the capacity of like 100 of that computers. Crazy.
Yeah, but if you upgrade it at all, if you don't use just the base unit, it's cheaper to buy 2 of them.
That's right. That's right. You want to know why we don't do that, Courtney? Because we're crazy. Oh, by the way, Guy, in modern versions of Sequoia, you can actually, there's a way in the App Store, you go to Options, and then you can say, install apps over 1 gig on an external drive. That'll just fix it.
Yeah.
Where is that?
As for your storage goes, yeah.
Mac Rumors has a really easy mock-up on it. You'll see it.
Okay.
Current Sequoia does it.